Now, as the day finally draws to a close and the world outside your window grows quiet and still, let your mind begin to unwind. Let the lists and the worries of the day drift away like leaves on a slow-moving stream. Find that perfect, cozy position where the weight of your body is fully supported, and take a slow, deep breath in. And then let it out, feeling the tension dissolve with each exhalation. We are going to journey a long, long way from here, not just in miles, but in centuries. We are going to slip into the sandals of another, in a time when the world was both vast and small, when the air smelled of salt, stone, and olive oil, and when the fate of civilizations was being written in the dust of marching legions and the whispers of philosophers. So close your eyes and let your imagination do the rest. Let's travel back to the year 231 BC. You wake. It is not a gentle awakening, but a slow, creaking return to consciousness, pulled from a thin and restless sleep. The first thing you feel is the deep, familiar ache in your lower back, a persistent complaint from another night spent on a hard sleeping mat stuffed with straw. The second is the cold. The thin wool blanket, worn soft in patches from years of use, has slipped away during the night, and the chill of the early Athenian morning seeps into your bones. You can see your breath, pale in the dim gray light filtering through the single small window of your home. With a grunt, you push yourself up. The rough texture of the woven mat leaves a pattern on your forearm. You run a hand through your hair, and small, dry bits of straw catch in your fingers and cling to your tunic. The room around you is simple, almost bare. A low table holds a clay water jug and a single chipped cup. Your few possessions: a second tunic, a warmer cloak for winter. Your tools are stored in a wooden chest in the corner. The floor is packed earth, swept clean, but the air carries the faint, musty scent of a life lived close to the ground. You pull on your sandals, the leather worn and comfortable, and step outside into the narrow street. Athens stirs around you. The sky is shifting from deep indigo to a soft, pearly gray, outlining the rooftops against the coming dawn. From a nearby house, you hear the muffled cry of a baby, and from further away, the first rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer. But stronger than the sounds are the smells. They hit you in layers. The sharp, acrid tang of a freshly doused cooking fire, the rich, earthy scent of donkey dung from the street and weaving. Through it all, the undeniable, comforting aroma of bread baking in a communal oven. It is the smell of a city waking up, a city of countless lives, each with its own joys and sorrows. Your stomach clenches with a hollow pang, a reminder of last night's meager supper. You turn and join the trickle of people moving towards the heart of the city, the Agora. This is the true pulse of Athens, the marketplace and meeting place, where everything and everyone can be found. As you walk, the streets widen, and the sounds grow into a cacophony of merchants already shouting their wares. The low murmur of men gathered in earnest discussion, the bleating of goats being led to sacrifice, the laughter of children chasing a dog through the crowds. You need to buy food, a handful of olives, a piece of bread, perhaps a few figs if the price is right. But more than that, you need information. To live in Athens now is to live with a constant, low hum of uncertainty. You are not a citizen of great wealth or influence. You are a craftsman, a metalworker. Your world is the small workshop you rent, the feel of a hammer in your hand, the shaping of bronze and copper into useful, beautiful things. But the larger world, the world of kings and empires, has a way of pressing in, no matter how small you try to make your life. Athens, the elders tell you with voices full of wistful pride, is not what it used to be. They speak of a golden age, a time when your city was the school of all Greece, when giants like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle walked these very streets, their words shaping the very idea of thought itself. They describe the Parthenon on the Acropolis, not as the weathered, familiar monument you know, but as a blindingly white, new-built marvel, a testament to Athenian power and piety. They speak of a mighty navy, of triremes that ruled the wine-dark sea, of an empire of tribute and influence. Those days are a ghost, a beautiful, haunting memory. The reality is that Athens is now just one of many Greek city-states, a prize to be fought over, a pawn in the endless, shifting political games between the larger, Hellenistic kingdoms that emerged from the shattered empire of Alexander the Great. To the north, Macedon under King Antigonus Dusan flexes its muscles, always looking south. To the east, the vast Seleucid Empire stretches into the unimaginable distances of Asia. To the south, the Ptolemies in Egypt control the seas and the islands. And you, like most Athenians, navigate this complex world with a weary pragmatism. And then there is the west, far across the Adriatic Sea. In the boot of Italy, a new power is rising. Rome. The word is spoken in the Agora with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. You've heard stories from travelers and merchants. They are a practical people. These Romans, severe and disciplined. They are brilliant soldiers, engineers of roads and aqueducts, but they are new. They lack the subtlety, the cultured grace, the philosophical depth of the Greeks. They are, in the whispered opinion of many, barbarians with a talent for organization. Most Athenians, wrapped in the cloak of their ancient culture, don't pay them much mind. What could these pragmatic, sword-swinging Westerners possibly want with the sophisticated, tangled world of Greece? You approach your usual fruit seller, an old man with a face as wrinkled as a dried fig. You exchange a few small, worn coins for a handful of olives and a single, slightly bruised fig. The coins disappear into a pouch at his belt. Any news from the north? You ask, popping a salty olive into your mouth. The flavor is rich and immediate, momentarily silencing the hunger in your belly. The merchant leans forward, his voice dropping. The Illyrians, he mutters, his breath heavy with the garlic from his morning meal. Pirates, growing bolder, raiding our merchant ships in the Adriatic. Bad for business, bad for everyone. You nod thoughtfully. Illyria, the wild region across the sea from Italy. Its tribes have always been a nuisance, a source of pirates and raiders. It seems a distant problem, a concern for merchants and ship captains, nothing that would truly affect your daily life of hammering metal and earning just enough drachmas to get by. If only you knew. If only you could see the threads being pulled in the tapestry of fate. For among those merchant ships being harassed are vessels belonging to Italian traders from Rome. And Rome, unlike the fractious, endlessly debating Greek cities, does not take kindly to threats against its commercial interests. Their response is not a debate, it is a calculation. At this very moment, in the Roman Senate, a building far grander than anything in Athens, heated debates are taking place. The Republic is still catching its breath from its exhausting, decades-long war against Carthage, a conflict of such scale it dwarfed any Greek war. But a faction of senators, sharp-eyed and ambitious, is pushing for action. They see the Illyrian piracy not just as a nuisance, but as an opportunity, a chance to extend Rome's influence, to plant its standard across the sea, to test the waters of the Greek world. A pretext is being manufactured, a casus belli. But you know nothing of this. The politics of a distant Italian city are as remote to you as the customs of the Egyptians. You finish your simple breakfast, the fig a burst of honeyed sweetness, and head toward your workshop. It is a small, rectangular space, its doorway open to the street to let in the light. The walls are lined with shelves holding your tools, hammers of various weights, chisels, tongs, files, and raw materials. The familiar metallic scent of your trade hangs in the air. Today, you are working on a bronze lamp for a wealthy client, a merchant who made his money trading Athenian olive oil for Egyptian grain. The lamp is to be elegant, shaped like a dolphin, its tail curling up to hold the wick. You have already cast the basic form, and now you work with smaller tools, chasing fine details into the metal scales on the dolphin's body. the intelligent curve of its eye. You light a small, hot fire, and the workshop fills with the sizzle and hiss of metal being heated, tempered, and shaped. Your hammer strikes the bronze with a rhythmic asterisk, tap dash, tap dash, tap asterisk. A sound as familiar to you as your own heartbeat. Your muscles warm with the familiar effort, and you lose yourself in the work, in the satisfaction of creating something from nothing. This is your sanctuary, the realm you control. As the sun climbs higher, warming the stones of the street outside, you hear raised voices. Curiosity pulls you from your focus. Wiping your hands on a greasy rag, you step into the sunlight. A crowd is gathered around a man who looks like he has traveled far. His chiton is dust-stained, his sandals worn thin. His face is flushed with the excitement of being the bearer of news. "The Romans," he announces to the growing circle of listeners. "They have sent an embassy to Queen Tuta of the Illyrians. They demand she put a stop to the piracy, or face the consequences." A laugh erupts from someone in the crowd. Consequences? What consequences? What can Rome do, all the way across the sea? They are nothing but farmers and soldiers. The traveler shakes his head, his expression earnest. Do not underestimate them. I have been to Italy. I have seen their armies on the march. They are not like us. They are organized like a single massive machine. They are disciplined, and they hold grudges. They do not forget an insult. You listen with a detached interest. It is a curious story, a piece of political theater happening on a distant stage. The affairs of Romans and Illyrians seem as remote as a storm at sea. With a slight shrug, you return to your workshop, to your half-formed dolphin. The future of the Mediterranean world is temporarily forgotten, pushed aside by the immediate, tangible concern of completing your commission and earning your day's wage. The seasons turn. The hot, dry summer, when the very air seems to shimmer over the marble, gives way to the milder, gentler days of autumn. The light turns golden, and the markets fill with the bounty of the harvest grapes, pomegranates, and nuts. Life continues in its familiar rhythm. Work, occasional visits to the public baths, to wash away the grime and hear the gossip. Evenings spent with a few friends at a local tavern, sharing a jug of watered wine and discussing everything from the price of fish to the latest play. Then, one crisp autumn day, startling news ripples through the city, moving from the Piraeus port to the Agora with the speed of a wildfire. The Roman envoys to Illyria, one of them has been killed, murdered, and the whispers say it was on the orders of Queen Tuta herself. The audacity of it stuns the city. To kill an envoy is to violate a sacred trust, a crime against the gods themselves. Even more shocking is what follows. Rome's response is not a complaint, not a demand for reparations. It is a declaration of war, and not a small, punitive expedition. The reports say a massive force, 22,000 men, and 200 warships, is being assembled to cross the Adriatic. The scale of it is staggering, unprecedented. To send such a force so far from home, for what seemed like a minor provocation. It speaks of a confidence, an ambition, that suddenly feels very close, very real. That evening, in the tavern, the air is thick with discussion, and the smoke from the oil lamps. Your friends are animated. "The Romans are fools," declares one, a merchant in olive oil. "They know nothing of the eastern seas, the politics, the weather. The Illyrians will lure them into the rocky coves and make short work of them." "I am not so sure," counters an older man who had once served as a hoplite in his youth. "I have heard from a cousin who trades in Syracuse. The Roman legions are formidable. They fight in a way we do not. And remember, they defeated Carthage, and Carthage had the greatest navy in the world. But that was different," argues the merchant. "That was a war for survival on their doorstep. This is not their territory. They are overreaching." You listen to the debate, sipping your wine, offering no opinion. Politics has always seemed a dangerous game to you. best left to those with the wealth and connections to play it safely, to survive the inevitable shifts in power. Still, you cannot shake the vague, formless unease that has settled in your gut. It feels like the first distant rumble of thunder before a storm. That unease proves justified when, barely a year later, news arrives that the Roman campaign has been a stunning, complete success. Queen Tuta has been besieged in her stronghold, forced to accept humiliating peace terms. She must give up much of her territory, disband her fleet, and agree to pay tribute to Rome. The Roman Republic, almost overnight, now has a permanent foothold across the Adriatic Sea, in lands that feel much, much closer to Greece than ever before. For the first time, standing in the Agora as this news is proclaimed, you begin to truly wonder. You look at the faces around you, the confident merchants, the arguing philosophers, the weary farmers, and you see a people living in the shadow of their own past glory, unaware that the world's axis is shifting. You wonder if perhaps Athens and all of Greece should be paying very, very close attention to this relentless, disciplined power rising in the West. More years pass. You grow older. You see the first strands of silver appearing at your temples, feel the ache in your back becoming a more persistent companion. The world continues its slow, inexorable turn. Philip V becomes king of Macedon, young, ambitious, and hungry for power. And in the West, the rumors begin again. Whispers of another, greater conflict brewing between Rome and its old enemy, Carthage. Then, in 218 BC, the whispers become a roar that echoes across the Mediterranean. Hannibal, the brilliant, daring Carthaginian general, has done the impossible. He has led his army, complete with African war elephants, across the towering snow-covered peaks of the Alps and invaded Italy itself. He is in the Romans' backyard, tearing their homeland apart. All of Greece watches, a captivated audience to this epic drama. You find yourself following the news of this distant war with an intensity that surprises you. Each report of a Carthaginian victory at Trebia, at Lake Trasimene sends a ripple of dark excitement through Athens. It is not that you or your fellow Athenians particularly love Carthage. It is that anything that humbles the increasingly powerful, and in Greek eyes, arrogant Romans, seems like a good thing. It is a check on their ambition, a reminder that they are not invincible. Hannibal has crushed them at Cannae. One of your friends announces excitedly one evening in the tavern, his voice rising above the general din. They say the Romans lost 50,000 men in a single day, the flower of their army destroyed. And now he is roaming Italy at will. Imagine, adds another, his eyes wide, Rome could fall. The Republic could be shattered. The prospect seems to delight everyone in the room. Everyone, that is, except for the old soldier, who sits quietly, swirling the wine in his cup, his expression thoughtful. If Rome falls, he says, his voice quiet but cutting through the celebration, what then? Do you think Carthage, a merchant empire, will leave Greece alone if they become the dominant power in the Middle Sea? Do you think they will care for our philosophy or our hurt? They will see only markets and resources. His words cast a momentary pall over the celebration, a splash of cold water. But it is quickly forgotten, as more wine is poured and toasts are made to Hannibal's health. Yet later that night, as you lie on your sleeping mat, staring at the familiar cracks in your ceiling, you find yourself pondering his question. What would a Carthaginian-dominated world look like? You have no answer. What you don't know, what no one in Athens yet knows, is that King Philip V of Macedon is asking himself the very same question, and he is reaching a very different conclusion. Seeing Rome vulnerable, bleeding, fighting for its very life against Hannibal, Philip decides this is his moment. He signs a treaty of alliance with Carthage, hoping to expand Macedonian power into Illyria and beyond while Rome is distracted. It is a fateful, miscalculated decision, one that will, in time, bring the Roman legions not just to the edges of the Greek world, but but to its very heart. The seasons turn into years. Reports from the west are confused, contradictory. Hannibal remains undefeated in the field, a ghost that haunts Italy, yet Rome somehow endures. The war becomes a grinding stalemate, and gradually, attention in Athens turns to more immediate, personal concerns. For you, those concerns are the increasing stiffness in your fingers, a developing arthritis that makes the fine, detailed work of metalworking more difficult and painful with each passing month. You have had to take on an apprentice, a young boy from a poor family, to help with the heavier tasks. And the cost of food in the market seems to creep ever higher, while the payments for your work remain the same. You are getting by, but barely. You have never married. You could never afford to support a family on your meager earnings. Sometimes, in the deep quiet of the night, the loneliness weighs on you as heavily as your physical discomforts. Then one morning, as you are carefully selecting vegetables at a market stall, a sudden commotion erupts at the edge of the Agora. A messenger has arrived, his horse lathered and heaving, the rider himself looking as if he has ridden through the very gates of Hades. A crowd quickly gathers around him, sensing the importance of his news. You move closer, your basket forgotten, curiosity overriding your morning errands. The messenger's voice, hoarse from dust and shouting, carries across the marketplace. Rome has defeated Carthage. Hannibal has been recalled to defend his homeland. The Roman general Scipio has invaded Africa itself. A murmur of disbelief and astonishment runs through the crowd. This is entirely unexpected. Despite all his victories, Hannibal has been outmaneuvered, strategically checkmated. Rome, rather than collapsing, has somehow found the strength, the sheer stubborn will, to take the war to the Carthaginians' own doorstep. What of King Philip? Someone shouts from the crowd. He allied with Carthage. The messenger's expression is grim. The Romans have not forgotten, he says, his words dropping like stones. Even now, they prepare to turn their attention eastward. A chill, cold and sharp, runs down your spine despite the warm spring air. Suddenly, the Roman Republic doesn't seem distant anymore. It feels like a storm cloud that has been gathering for decades, and now it is finally turning its gaze directly upon you. The First Macedonian War, as it will later be called, ends without much direct fighting between Roman and Macedonian forces. Rome, still focused on finally defeating Carthage, is content with a peace treaty that essentially maintains the status quo. But you, and every other Greek with any political awareness, know in your bones that it is only a temporary reprieve. A line has been crossed. Rome has officially intervened in Greek affairs. And indeed, just 3 years after Scipio finally defeats Hannibal, at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC, forcing Carthage to its knees, Rome turns its full attention to the east. Complaints from Rhodes and Pergamum about Macedonian aggression give the Romans the pretext they need. The Senate declares war on Philip V. This time, there will be no half measures. The Second Macedonian War has begun. You are older now, your hair more gray than black, your face lined with the years. You are approaching what the Greeks consider old age. Your hands, once so skilled and strong, are gnarled with arthritis, the joints swollen and painful. You can no longer manage the fine work that was your pride. Your apprentice, now a young man, does most of the demanding metalworking while you supervise, teach, and handle the clients. But you still visit the Agora daily, as much for the news and conversation as for the supplies. And the news these days is all about Rome. They've landed at Apollonia, says a merchant who specializes in imported Italian wine. 20,000 legionaries under the consul Galba. The Aetolian League has allied with them against Philip, adds a sailor, fresh from the port of Piraeus. And there are rumors that Pergamum and Rhodes have contributed ships. You listen quietly, your heart feeling heavy, like a stone in your chest. The Greeks are doing what they have always done, what they have done since the days of the Trojan War, fighting among themselves, inviting outside powers to help in their internal squabbles. It is how Philip of Macedon, Alexander's father, gained control of Greece a century and a half ago. Now, history seems to be repeating itself, but with Rome, a far more formidable and alien power in the role of the conqueror. What of Athens? You ask, your voice raspy. Where do we stand? The question brings an uncomfortable silence. Athens, once the proud leader of the Delian League, the city that defied the Persian Empire at Marathon and Salamis, is now reduced to a minor player. Your city, after much debate and internal division, has declared for Rome, seeing the Romans as the preferable alternative to Macedonian domination. But in truth, Athens has little real choice, and even less voice in the matter. You are a spectator to your own destiny. As the war progresses, you follow the reports as best you can. The Roman consul Titus Quintius Flaminus has taken command. He is a different kind of Roman younger, more sophisticated. He speaks Greek well and seems to understand the complex web of Greek politics. He begins a clever propaganda campaign, declaring that Rome comes not as a conqueror, but as a liberator, to free the Greek cities from Macedonian oppression. Many Greeks, including many Athenians, want to believe him. They cheer his name. You are not so sure. You have lived long enough to grow deeply skeptical of anyone who claims to wage war for the benefit of others. You remember the old soldiers' warning from years ago. You see the sharp, calculating look in the eyes of the Roman officials, who now occasionally pass through Athens. The decisive moment comes in 197 BC, at a place called Cynoscephalae in Thessaly. The Roman legions and Philip's famed Macedonian phalanx meet in open battle for the first time. The result sends a seismic shock through the entire Greek world. You hear the news in the Agora, delivered by a man who claims his brother fought in the battle. The phalanxes drove the Romans back at first, he recounts to the gathered silent crowd. They are a wall of spears, impossible to face head-on. But the ground was uneven, broken. Gaps opened in their formation. The man draws a finger across his throat. The Romans sent their men into those gaps with their short swords. Butchery. They were slaughtered from the sides and behind. 8,000 Macedonians dead. 5,000 captured. Philip barely escaped with his life. You feel something fundamental shift in the world at that moment. A change as tangible as an earthquake. The phalanx, the Greek military formation, that had dominated warfare since the time of Philip II, that had conquered the Persian Empire under Alexander, had been defeated. Not by a better phalanx, but by something new, something more flexible, more brutally pragmatic. Roman tactics and discipline have broken the backbone of Greek military power. It is as if the foundations of your world, the world of your ancestors, have not just cracked, but crumbled. The terms imposed on Philip V are harsh. He must withdraw from all Greek territories, reduce his fleet to a token size, and pay a massive indemnity to Rome. More importantly, he must become a Roman ally, effectively a client king, his foreign policy dictated by the Senate. The next year, at the Isthmian Games, Flaminus makes a dramatic announcement that is soon reported in every city and village in Greece. A herald stands before the assembled crowd and proclaims, "The Senate and people of Rome, and their commander Titus Quintius, having defeated King Philip and the Macedonians in war, declare the following peoples free, without garrison, without tribute, in full enjoyment of their ancestral laws. The Corinthians, Phocians, Locrians, Euboeans, Theoticaceans, Magnesians, Thessalians, and Perebians." The proclamation is met with such wild, explosive jubilation that they say birds flying overhead were stunned by the noise and fell dead from the sky. Greece is free, no longer under Macedonian control. The celebration in Athens lasts for days. There is feasting, singing, sacrifices of thanks to the gods. But you, in your wisdom born of years and hardship, understand what many of your fellow Greeks, in their euphoria, do not. You watch the celebrations with a sad smile. Freedom granted, you whisper to yourself, can also be freedom taken away. Rome may call itself a liberator, but it has no intention of leaving the Greek world to its own devices. You see the Roman garrisons that remain in strategic locations. You see the Roman advisors who now consult with Greek governments. This is not the end of Roman involvement in Greece. It is merely the end of the beginning. You are proven right far sooner than even you expected. Just 5 years after Cynoscephalae, another power threatens Greece. Antiochus III, the powerful king of the Seleucid Empire, has crossed the Hellespont into Europe with his massive army. Rome, now firmly established as the protector of Greek freedom, once again sends its legions eastward. The Aetolian League, previously Rome's ally against Philip, now switches sides and supports Antiochus. They have realized, too late, that they have merely exchanged one master for another. It is a futile, desperate gesture. At Thermopylae, the same narrow pass where Leonidas and his 300 Spartans made their legendary stand against the Persians centuries before, the Romans utterly defeat Antiochus and force him to retreat back to Asia. But the Romans do not stop there. They follow him, crossing into Asia Minor, something no Greek army had ever managed to do against the Persians, and defeat him again, decisively. At Magnesia, in 190 BC, the Seleucid king is forced to abandon all his territories in Asia Minor and pay an even larger indemnity than was imposed on Philip and the Aetolians who dared to defy Rome. They are made an example of. Their league is stripped of much of its territory and independence, reduced to a powerless Roman client state. The message to the rest of Greece is chillingly clear. Opposition to Rome will not be tolerated. The liberation was a one-time offer. Defiance means annihilation. You watch all this unfold from your small workshop in Athens. Your body grows frailer with each passing year. You rely more and more on your apprentice, who now does most of the actual metalworking while you supervise and teach. Your world has contracted to the space between your workshop, your modest home, and the short walks between them. But your mind remains sharp, and you continue to follow the shifting politics of Greece and Rome with a scholar's attention. You see how Rome, having declared the Greeks free, nevertheless keeps its legions within easy marching distance. You see how Roman advisors increasingly influence the policies of supposedly independent Greek cities. You see how Roman merchants and businessmen gradually gain control of more and more of the Greek economy, buying up land and controlling trade routes. It is conquest by another name, slower, more insidious, but perhaps more thorough than outright military occupation. Then, in 179 BC, Philip V of Macedon dies and is succeeded by his son, Perseus. The new king is proud, nationalistic, and chafes under the restrictions imposed by Rome. He begins to quietly rebuild Macedonian strength, forming alliances with other Greek states, and even with tribes to the north in Thrace. Rome watches these developments with a cold, unblinking eye. The memory of Hannibal's invasion is still fresh in the Roman mind, and the Senate has no intention of allowing another potential enemy to gain strength on its flanks. Accusations and counter-accusations fly between Rome and Macedon. Diplomatic missions come and go, their tones growing increasingly hostile. Tensions escalate, and in 171 BC, Rome declares war on Perseus. The Third Macedonian War has begun. You are very old now. You are one of the elders of Athens, though your poverty means you hold no official status. Your hair is white and thin. Your skin is wrinkled and spotted with age. Your back permanently bent. You can no longer make the walk to the Agora, but friends and your former apprentice, now a master craftsman in his own right, bring you news along with your food and wine. The war does not go well for Rome at first. Perseus is a capable commander, and he wins several victories, including a significant cavalry engagement at Callinicus. For a brief, heart-stopping moment, it seems as if Macedon might reassert itself as a power in Greece, as if the old order might be restored. But Rome is relentless. A new consul, the seasoned and ruthless Lucius Aemilius Paulus, takes command of the Roman forces in Greece. And in 168 BC, at Pydna, the Roman legions and the Macedonian phalanx meet in battle once more. The result is even more decisive than Cynoscephalae. The Macedonian army is virtually annihilated. Perseus flees the battlefield, only to be captured soon after. He will end his days as a prisoner in a small Italian town, a broken man. The kingdom of Macedon, the kingdom that had dominated northern Greece since the time of Philip II, that had produced Alexander the Great and conquered half the known world, ceases to exist. The Romans divided into 4 separate, powerless republics, each forbidden to have relations with the others. A heavy tribute is imposed, and all the royal mines are closed, deliberately destroying the Macedonian economy to prevent it from ever rising again. As for the rest of Greece, any city or league suspected of having sympathized with Perseus faces swift and brutal Roman retribution. In Epirus alone, 70 towns are destroyed, and 150,000 people are sold into slavery. The message is no longer clear. It is screamed in blood and fire. Resistance is not just futile, it is suicide. You receive this final news in your bed, where you now spend most of your days. Your former apprentice sits beside you, holding your frail, trembling hand as he tells you what has happened. The scale of the destruction, the finality of it, is difficult to comprehend. What will become of Athens? You ask, your voice barely a whisper, the voice of a man who has seen his world change beyond recognition. What will become of Greece? He squeezes your hand gently, his own hand, once so small and clumsy, now strong and capable. We will endure, he says, with the resilient optimism of the young, as we always have. The Romans may control our bodies, but they cannot take our minds, our culture. Already, they send their sons to study with our philosophers. They copy our art, our architecture. In time, perhaps we will conquer them in our own way. You smile weakly, wanting to believe him, wanting to find hope in his words. But as you drift into sleep, your mind clouded with age and memory, you can't help but wonder if Greece will ever truly be free again, or if it is destined to be a beautiful, cultured province in someone else's empire, living off the glory of its past. What you cannot know, as your eyes close and your breathing grows slow and shallow, is that the final act of the Roman conquest of Greece is yet to come. That the Achaean League will make one last, desperate bid for independence. That in 146 BC, the same year that Rome finally destroys its hated rival, Carthage, erasing it from the map and sowing the earth with salt, the consul Lucius Mummius will defeat the Achaean army at Corinth, will take that beautiful ancient city and will raze it to the ground, its buildings smashed, its treasures looted, its population sold into slavery. With that act, all pretense of Greek freedom will end. Greece will formally become the Roman province of Achaea, directly governed by a Roman proconsul. But perhaps it is better that you do not live to see it. Better to die with at least the illusion that something of the old Greece, the Greece of Pericles and Socrates, of democracy and philosophy, might survive under Roman rule. Better to remember the taste of those morning olives, the sound of the hammer in your workshop, the golden light of an Athenian autumn, before the long shadow of the eagle fell completely across the land. As sleep finally overtakes you, a deep, eternal sleep, your muscles relax completely, and your breath slows to a stop. The weight of age, of hardship, of a world lost, lifts from your tired bones. For the first time in years, you feel no pain, no stiffness. The light fades from your eyes, and you drift away, leaving behind a world in painful, irrevocable transition. A world where Greece's golden age has truly ended, and Rome's is dawning, bright and hard as steel. A world where two great civilizations have collided, and nothing will ever be the same again. And as your story ends here, in the quiet of an Athenian home, the rest of the world continues to turn. The story of Greece and Rome weaving itself into an even richer, more complex tapestry. But that is a story for another night. For now, let the past rest. Let your breathing be slow and even, and drift into your own peaceful, untroubled dreams. Sleep well,